All right, earlier this month, we had a Brooklyn lyricist join me in the studio. Today, Queens, Left Rack is in the building as we have a Grammy Award-winning trumpeter, as well as a composer and a producer. This man has also worked in sports media with Sirius XM NBA Radio and Sirius XM Boxing. He is also a sports trivia guru, which we will get to later. It is the one and only Nabaté Isles, and he joins me now in studio. Nabaté,
Dexter,
what's up, man?
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me on your show.
No, man, I'm glad to have you on.
Wow, that's what's up.
No, man, glad to have you on, man, because it's really good because you're a dope musician.
Thank you.
And you also are a huge sports fan. You've been very involved in sports, as I told the people. So I'm really happy to have Nabaté here. So we're going to start with this. Because I've been listening to your music for quite some time, right? You're one of my favorite jazz artists, fantastic trumpeter. Dropped a new album last week, Nabaté did. Last month, excuse me, not last week. It is called In Motion. What's the vibe of the album? What can you tell people about this new album?
Yes, it's about dance, because with jazz music, with jazz and Black American music, it started with dance. It started with movement. You had big bands and everything. You had before that Dixieland and blues and everything that had people dancing, and that was the pop music of the day. So now what it is, it's like with In Motion, we don't have that much in jazz anymore. People being motivated and inspired to move and dance. So I really wanted to accentuate that through the music and also emphasize the music I was listening to when I was younger, growing up in Queens and everything, growing up in New York in the 80s and 90s and loving New Jack Swing and Caribbean music and house music and funk and also, of course, hip hop, of course,
right.
Boom bap, and of course, jazz, 90s jazz, growing up listening to the Roy Hargroves, and Wynton Marsalis's and Terrence Blanchard's, Branford Marsalis, etc. So that's what inspired me. It was kind of like soundtrack of my younger years.
Yeah, and I feel like you definitely encapsulated that on the album. Then I got a chance to see you at City Winery earlier this month, or late last month, I should say.
Great to see you right up front.
Yeah, I was right there, right up front, and it was a really good show. And listen, people were moving, right? So you had that sort of dance feel and vibe to the album and all the different types of music. So I encourage people to check that out. In Motion album is out now. I gotta ask you this, because this is a question or a phrase, I should say, that you hear a lot when it comes in terms of jazz with basketball. Dirk Nowitzki's old coach back in Germany, he used to say, basketball is jazz. And I feel a lot of times we hear that on the sports side, right? But we don't necessarily hear that from musicians. So I have a jazz musician here.
Yeah.
And I gotta ask you, is basketball jazz? Do you see similarities between basketball and jazz, or what do you see in that?
Yes, indeed, because you have five players on the court, and each player has a role in, within a play, movement, screen sets, everything like that. So it's like jazz because it's like a quintet of like having a trumpet player playing the melody, saxophonist playing the harmony, pianist comping the chords, bassist playing the walking bass line or a groove on the bass, and the drummer playing the rhythm, the chant.
Right.
So you have that, and you have that together, and it makes like it's everyone being cohesive within one structure. And it's the same with basketball, with having 5 men on the court, and they're each doing a certain role where they movement, and you set a screen, you move around the screen and everything like that, and then take the shot, then run for the rebound, things like that. Everything is like so cohesive. So jazz is definitely like that. And it's so funny, speaking of jazz basketball connection, my favorite is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Shout out to Mr.
Shout out to the legend, yeah.
Yes, indeed. What a wonderful individual. Larry Willis, God rest his soul, the great pianist. Larry Willis grew up in the Polo Grounds. Kareem, of course, grew up in the Dykeman houses. So what happened was they would play basketball, and Larry Willis said, this is so great. He said this to me. He said, who can say that they got this shot blocked by Kareem in Rucker Park and then played slugs that night playing piano, So it's kind of like that connection,
Yeah, and there is still so many connections between the sport and jazz music. You see that in a lot of Kareem, obviously, is a jazz lover. I've seen him at jazz at Lincoln Center. He obviously loves the music, too. Okay, so while we have you here, we're not just going to talk about music. We got to talk about sports. We got to talk about some New York sports here. We got to start with the football teams. So I want to ask this. Right now, who is the brighter future? Is it the Giants or is it the Jets, Nabaté? Who are you rolling with? Who's a brighter future for New York football?
The Jets have, I think the Jets, and I'm a Giants fan. But
Despite the Jets having some questions at quarterback.
That's the thing.
Okay.
That's the only question they have. They have everything else. Defensively, they improved so much. They have the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year as well. Also, Breece Hall is coming back, even though he tore his ACL. So, and he's young, so he could be able to recover. So you have that. You have him. You have Knight as well, too. You have an offensive line, a good offensive line that even though they had injuries, they were still like a solid unit overall. And defensively, C.J. Mosley is going to be back, obviously. He's the anchor. He's the leader of that defense. And then, of course, Quentin Williams, they have to pay him. That could be, hopefully he does not hold out, hopefully. But if they sign him, they have everything set. They just need the quarterback. And then, of course, they're trying to get Aaron Rodgers because they contacted Green Bay about his services on whether they can get him. So they just need a QB. They have the brighter future. The Giants still have some holes, like linebacking. They still have some holes there. They got to improve the secondary, too, as well. And the receivers. Not happening. You know what I mean? Like with the injuries, but Kenny Golladay, of course, they're going to waive him, cut him. Right. But when you have Darius Slayton and Hodgins there, it's like, okay, they're good 3-4 guys, but they need an ace wide receiver.
Upgrade there.
Yeah. So that's why the Jets are in a much better position.
All right, there you have it. Nabaté going with the Jets having the brighter future. Now we got to move to baseball because baseball's right around the corner, Nabaté.
Love it.
As we know it. I know you're happy. You are a Mets fan.
Yes, right.
And we know this, and we'll talk about why the Mets should have you involved with something. We'll get to that a bit later. Do you think either New York team will play in the World Series in 2023? Will you go with the Yankees or the Mets? Or could it be both? That we might see a Subway Series. Do we see either team playing in the World Series in 2023?
It's so funny. I have to say no.
Oh, disappointing the New York baseball fans.
I think so. Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, great pitchers, but they're still in their prime, but they're the tail end of their prime. Verlander struggles in the postseason, especially in the World Series. So I think both the Yanks and the Yanks, their bullpen is questionable and shaky, and also their lineup still, they don't have guys that are on the bases, they don't have guys that great contact hitters or get on the bases and aggressive on the bases. So I think the Yanks still have those flaws, And Aaron Judge, we know he's not going to have the season that he had this year. And also remember, Aaron Judge wasn't healthy throughout his career. So of course he was healthy during his contract year. So the Yanks have flaws, I think, with their lineup, how their lineup is constructed, as well as their bullpen. And then the Mets, they have a good rotation, but I don't know if they can stay. Scherzer had some injury problems last year. Yep. Verlander, remember, is 3 years removed from having that arm issue that he was out for the season. So I think both teams definitely obviously make the playoffs. One of them will win the division. I think the Mets finish second. I think the Braves, people still forget about the Braves, like their young staff and their very deep lineup, Phillies with their deep lineup. The Yanks, I think the Yanks will win the East again, for sure. The AL East, but I think both teams will fall short.
Will fall short
of the World Series.
Okay. Yeah. Nabaté not making the baseball fans
at
all whatsoever. Okay, let's talk some basketball real quick. The Knicks right now, 6 games over 500. They're in the 6th spot at the All-Star break. What do you think the Knicks can do this season? What do you see this Knicks team doing? I know you're an NBA guy as well. Yeah. What can the Knicks do? You know what? Their younger players are really getting better and better. Grimes has really shown an improvement throughout the season. Jericho Sims, definitely show. If Mitchell Robinson can be healthy, that's really key. If he can be healthy, I think the Knicks could sneak a win in the first round. Excuse me. But we'll see how, I just feel like they're one more year away and one more player away. They need an all-star caliber player. Someone like a Zach LaVine they tried to get before the trading deadline, but they had to give up a lot. Donovan Mitchell, they tried to get him, but they had to give up a lot, So I think they need an all-star player, one more. But that top three of Jalen Brunson, and I said all along, Jalen Brunson, he was a bargain. That's what I said, because he showed that he's a gamer in the playoffs. He shows that he's tough. He shows that he's smart. He also has experience from playing 4 years at Villanova.
So he was a bargain, and I'm not surprised by the damage he's doing right now with the Knicks. He's been incredible, and then that's made Julius Randle get back to the level of play that he had 2 years ago. So they just need one more player, and they are contenders for the NBA title. One more All-Star caliber player where you have 4 guys that can get a bucket at any time. You know, of course, R.J. Barrett I didn't mention, but he would be that.
Right. So you're very optimistic about the future of the Knicks, which is good. See, it did make the baseball fans happy, but make the basketball, at least the Knicks fans, happy. Okay, so something that people do not know. I mentioned at the top of this interview that you are a sports trivia guru, okay? And why this is this man right here, Nabaté Isles. He stumped the Swab, which is the show back on ESPN in season 2 of that show. He's also a winner of Sports Jeopardy. He won the 8th episode that was,
Eighth
right?
episode
The 8th
of the first season.
episode of the first season. He won there. So I said, you know what? I got to come up with a little trivia for Nabaté.
Okay,
we got to put him to the test
Now
here.
I'm getting older.
See
like
how he
the
can do. Oh,
mind could, you know.
Can't have excuses. You can't have excuses now. All right, so I want to ask you this.
Okay.
Who was the last switch hitter to win the American League MVP?
Oh, Vita Blue.
Yo, see?
Vita Blue, 1971.
Yo, this is why this man is good. You see how quick he had this answer?
Yeah.
See, and you know what? My producer Lee, he tried to come up with something. We thought we were going to stump you, and we did not stump you. We did not stump you at all whatsoever. Do you think I could stump you with another one?
Hook me up.
I was trying to see if I could stump you. Oh, here's the one I have for you. Who is the last person that led, I believe it's maybe the only person that led the NCAA in scoring, the ABA in scoring, and the NBA in scoring?
Ooh.
Oh, we might have him stumped.
I'm thinking Rick Barry, right?
You got that.
Rick Barry, yeah. And man, shout out to Rick Barry. He's on my podcast, Where They At. Shout out to Rick Barry. Great man.
You know what? We were not able to stump Nabaté here at all. We tried. We couldn't do it. Nabaté, you know you're a great musician, great with the sports knowledge. And what we need to happen, right? Since you are a Queens guy.
That's right.
And you grew up a Mets fan, I want everybody to know.
Since 1985.
Queens guy, lifelong Met fan. We need Nabaté playing the trumpet, okay? At Citi Field for the national anthem. We need to make it happen.
And playing Edwin Diaz's theme as well.
There you go.
That's right.
We need to make that happen. We got a trumpeter right here, Mets fan from Queens, needs to get him in Flushing and get it done. I think
perfect.
that
Here, SNY the post. Hey, you know, let's let them know.
We can get it done. That is Nabaté Isles. Please check out his new album, In Motion. It is available everywhere now. Check it out. It's a great listen. And also his podcast, Where They At. Tell the people where else they can find you, where else they can check you out.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. My website is nabateisles.com, nabateisles.com. Also, you can check me out on Bandcamp, which you can really support my music. And Bandcamp is a great avenue for musicians to have support and be able to make the most money for the music that they create.
Yep.
So Bandcamp, Nabaté Isles, you can search me there. NSI Universal. Also NSI.Universal on Instagram. Nabaté Isles, SNTA on Twitter. And and also Where They At is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, everything. So,
Fantastic sports podcast.
yes,
Check that out.
Retired players. Great
Retired players that he does. One of the most knowledgeable in sports right there. You saw I couldn't stump him at all whatsoever. And he's really, 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 really good on the trumpet. So definitely check that out. Nabaté, appreciate you, man.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you coming here. Again, that is Nabaté Isles. I'm Dexter Henry. Hope you enjoyed this interview, and we'll have more like this. Until next time, peace, guys.